Shining a bright red as always is I've Red Luster, and I just checked out the player test build for the new Survivor and Dead by Daylight, and I gotta say, this is ridiculous. I genuinely don't. I don't think the developers have any idea what they're doing with this. These perks, except for this one, these two perks right here are beyond ridiculous. But I guess I should probably describe what they do first. The first one, which is probably the... it's hard to say if it's the least offensive of the two. They're both pretty bad. But I think Shadow Step is probably not as bad. Shadow Step effectively makes it so that you can change a totem into a Boon totem, and that Boon will eliminate scratch marks and auras in a 28 meter range of that totem. Meaning, effectively, once you run into that range of the totem, your scratch marks, and if you're being seen by an aura, disappears. And it lasts for 4 seconds after you leave it. That last bit doesn't really matter. It's this whole first bit of just entirely getting rid of scratch marks entirely. If you were to, like, just run into an area and try to get away from the killer and you break line of sight with this perk activated, you could probably get away from that tile and the killer would have no idea that you've left. You can't remove scratch marks on a whim like this. This is why there's so few Survivor perks that do it, because it's a very powerful effect. And this is just going to make it so that you enter a range and poof, you disappear. You use Iron Will with this, and even if you're injured, the killer's not going to be able to find you. Unless they see your blood on the ground. In which case, run lucky break. Congratulations. You've now turned literally invincible just by... or not invincible, but invisible by walking into this area. It's a bit ridiculous, because... wow. Just no scratch marks. No scratch marks, no aura. They have... one of these effects are already pretty strong. Both of them, it's a bit crazy. Now, yeah, you can say, oh, it's a Boon totem then. The killer can get rid of it, but the killer already has so many other things to manage. This is why I thought the whole Boon totem thing was such a bad idea to begin with, because it just gives killers way too many different things to micromanage at once. And basically, Boon totems are now giving the entire team more perks. Because Boon totems don't affect the people with Boon perks, it affects everyone in the radius of the Boon totem. So if someone was running 4 Boon perks, it effectively makes it so that all other survivors have 4 more perks when they're in radius of their Boon totem. That's why this is a bit ridiculous. But not as ridiculous as this next one, Circle of Healing. This is already causing an uproar with how powerful it is. And do not understate it, this is a very powerful perk. It is beyond unreasonable for a survivor to have. This perk gives anyone in radius of it 100% more healing speed. 100%. The strongest perk that you can have without any other requirements to increase your healing speed is Botany Knowledge, and that only gives you 33%. Circle of Healing gives you 100%. You heal twice as fast in its radius. That by itself is already pretty strong, but then you add the fact that it can also allow survivors to heal themselves without a med kit. It's basically... it's like self-care, but you remember how they had to nerf self-care really hard to only heal at 50% speed? Because everybody just self-caring all the time was a huge time sink for the killer. Because anytime the killer got somebody, the survivor would run off, heal up, and then just be right back in the game. Yeah, there is no penalty to healing yourself with the Circle of Healing. Meaning you can walk in, self-care, walk out. Now, you could make the argument of, you know, it's not that strong, it's only 28 meter range. you have to keep in mind what kind of maps there are in Dead by Daylight. And yeah, on some maps, these perks aren't going to be too good. You know, the super big maps or those kinds of maps, they're just like really awkwardly placed. But small maps, maps that are supposed to be killer-sided, these new Boon Totems are going to make small maps harder for killers. Even though they're usually easier, this is going to make them way harder because smaller maps means there's going to be less area for the Boon Totem to need to cover it, which means survivors can get to these areas easier. There's just so many things wrong with this concept of the Boon Totems, and these current effects are way too powerful. Just, they're ridiculously powerful. How would I change them? Well, first of all, Circle of Healing needs to have probably the biggest changes. The 100% healing speed bonus? No. 50%. Maybe less. Because honestly, there is no reason to run Botany Knowledge or Self-Care if you can just use the Boon Totem. Because even if the Boon Totem takes some time to set up, it's still 100% Self-Care speed and 200% speed of healing another survivor. And this stacks with other healing effects, by the way. I had a game where it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Someone had a boon of healing, and I had We're Gonna Live Forever. We're Gonna Live Forever gives you a high amount of speed when picking a survivor up off the ground, and Boon of Healing stacks on top of it. I was able to get survivors up that were knocked down almost within like 3 or 4 seconds. Like the killer would knock them down, look away for a second, and they were right back up again. And I was only using one other perk. If I were using another perk like Botany Knowledge on top of that, I probably could have gotten them up in time before the killer was done with the hit animation. Of course, once again, you know, perks and their effects stacking, the developers don't just think, you know what, maybe we should make perk effects not stack. That would solve so many balancing issues and allow perks that are really weak to be changed to be stronger, because the developers wouldn't have to worry about the survivors or killers stacking several perks on top of each other to make it ridiculous. But yeah, I'm sorry everybody, but these Boon Totems are ridiculous. But as I was saying, change Circle of Healing down to at least 50% maximum, and change the Self-Care to only be at 75% speed. Because as it stands, it is just way too good, purely by the fact that it's not just the survivor using the boon perks, it's anyone in the radius of them. Anyone in the radius of a boon perk is going to have extra perks. Imagine if like a team and everyone had like boon perks and they all just stacked them together and just cover the entire map with these extremely powerful effects that the killer can't really get rid of because it's too much of a time sink to keep going after them. I mean, yeah, it only takes the killer like a second to destroy a blessed totem, but totems were never something the killer had to worry about to begin with. They already had generators, survivors, all this other stuff to worry about, and now they're gonna have to worry about totems boosting them with 100% healing speed. That's just ridiculous. As for nerfing Shadow Step, it's kind of hard to say. I think the best idea would probably to add like a delay to the scratch marks disappearing. Like you have to be in range of the totem for like maybe 3-4 seconds before your scratch marks and auras start getting hidden. Because like I said, as soon as you enter this radius, you stop giving information entirely, effectively. Especially if you're running Iron Will on top of it and Lucky Break, you are going to effectively disappear to the killer. The moment you go around a corner, you stop existing to them because they're not going to have anything to track you with. I'm sorry, but just this effect is too strong. I get it. They're boon totems. They're supposed to be like a setup. They have a short range. But these effects are way too strong. This is why I thought Boon Totems were a bad idea to begin with. Because you're only going to have two different kinds of Boon Totems. Underpowered and overpowered. Because you're going to have Boon Totems that give an effect that another perk's going to do better. Or they're going to have to do the same effect but way better, which makes them overpowered. Because the killer has to go out of their way to disable them. And their effects have to be so much higher than their original predecessor to be usable. And these other perks that these perks are copying are not bad perks to begin with. Like, Botany Knowledge is a very good perk. But this, Circle of Healing, blows that out of the water. There's no point in using Botany Knowledge with a perk like Circle of Healing. Like, you can self-care yourself without self-care at normal speed. If you stack self-care with Botany Knowledge, those two perks still don't give you 100% healing speed with self-care. It's only, I think, like 83%. This effectively negates the need for both Botany Knowledge and self-care. And yeah, again, limited range, but still, on a smaller map, that's not gonna matter. It's only on big maps are these Boon Totems not gonna do good. And if a survivor wants to go to a smaller map, just use a map offering. I'm pretty sure thousands and thousands of survivors have tons of map offerings burning in their pockets. They don't have to use the specifically overpowered maps like Haddonfield. They can go to any map that's just remotely small, and their boon perks are going to carry them. Like I said, I've already been in games where these perks have just absolutely carried everybody, because Shadow Step makes survivors disappear, which makes chases last twice as long, and Circle of Healing pretty much negates all the damage a killer can do because of the increased heal speeds. It's just ridiculous. I mean, I already saw a video. I think Scott Junn did it. I'm not really a big fan of Scott Junn, but that's another whole story. I saw a video titling, "Oh, Circle of Healing makes survivors literally invincible." And he was right. If you have two survivors with you healing you, and you're all in the Circle of Healing, the killer literally cannot hit the survivors fast enough to negate their healing speed. And you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if their only perks that were healing boosting was the Circle of Healing. If you were to add something like Botany Knowledge or any other healing perk on top of it, like We're Gonna Live Forever, and several people are healing at the same time, you're just gonna heal so fast that unless you're using Save the Best for Last, you're not gonna hit them fast enough to damage them in time before they heal each other. These perks are just ridiculous, and I knew they were gonna be ridiculous because there's only two different kinds of Boon Totems that could exist. Underpowered ones, they're not going to be worth using, and overpowered ones that are just going to completely overshadow any other perks that do the similar effect. And not to mention all the other perks that got buffed for survivors, but that's another whole topic. I'm just trying to talk about the new stuff. All I can say is, I can really hope that VHS, that new Dead by Daylight like game, comes out soon. Because as soon as this update drops, I can already see tons and tons of killers just giving up entirely. These are ridiculous, they're overpowered, they're overbearing, they're way out of the way for the killer to go after because the killers again already have too many other things to be worrying about other than totems. It's just, this was a bad idea, and now that they've gone through with it, they're gonna keep it. And they're going to try with all their might to try and balance them. But it's not going to work. Because like I said, these totems are only going to have two different states. Underpowered or overpowered. This was just a bad idea. But enough of my ranting. That's all I want to do for this video. This has been Red Luster, signing out.